to my very first English speaking video about my LS swap on my 86. So what I want to do today is give you a pretty detailed walkthrough of my LS swap I did this winter season. It's pretty much finished. The car is moving. There's a section of the exhaust missing pretty much between the downpipe and the catback system, so the catalytic converters if you want so. But besides that, I'm pretty much finished, and so I want to give you an overview. So first take a look on the most important thing, the engine compartment. So what we have here is a LS3 out of a generation 5 Camaro. The engine has around 40k miles on it. It's a little bit modified, so we have a belt system pretty much from the Corvette C6. We have the AC compressor and the generator from the ZL1 Camaro. The complete kit is, besides the exhaust, which are the exhaust headers, which are the CX Racing headers, is a complete own development. So I designed all of the manufactured parts on a CAD system, a free CAD system on my own. So it was a goal for me to have a LS swap which would also be reproducible if someone likes to have the exact same swap. So engine mounts, transmission mounts, all of this little brackets here you need for the ECU, you need for the lines and so on. Everything is modeled in the CAD and can be reproduced as well. This air intake, so a complete airbox pretty much. Here we have 3D printed parts with a special manufacturing or building technique, so they are very rigid. They are exactly as rigid as a molded part you have in OEM applications. And yes, so maybe some more details about the modifications later. Important thing is that I want to create a part list where you have everything you need on that list. So for example, for the AC lines, all that AC lines can be ordered at coldhost.com. So I make a part list where you can see what lines and what fittings do I need. As well, the adapters are part of the kit I made on my own. And yes, so since I'm located in Germany, there are some parts I ordered from Germany, but I'm pretty sure that most of that stuff can also be ordered, for example, in the US or in Australia or wherever you are located. So today I've received the last parts from the powder coating. So also part of my own development, this covers for the ignition coils. So the ignition coils are also on a own relocation bracket, so it's not the OEM position. It's a little bit lower, therefore a little bit more over the headers. But I've taken care of the heat by installing additional heat shielding here, and together with this cover there is an additional metal sheet which goes underneath here. So you have 2 layers of metal and in between additional heat shielding, so everything should be safe. We have Scott performance wires here. It was a do-it-yourself kit, so I built them on my own based on this Scott performance kit. What worked pretty well, I added some additional heat shielding to the wires, and so there is also more space to the CX headers, which yes have this issue that the original routing of the spark plug wires is problematic and known for melting the spark plug wires, and so there is a good workaround to make sure nothing can happen there. Okay, so before we go more into detail, I will start to install the last cosmetic parts to the car, that you also can have an impression of how this design looks once it is finished. Yes, and so let's have a little time lapse and then we go on with the description. So installation is complete. Now I have also seen this with the final paint for the first time now, and yes, I have to say I'm pretty happy how this turned out. So it's still not completely finished. You may have seen here some points where another part can be screwed, a front cover here. So those parts will also be 3D printed parts, like the side parts and the connector of the airbox. They are pre-modeled now, but I wanted to wait until everything is brought together, and now I can do the final adjustments on this model before they will also go into production and will be 3D printed and then installed in front here. So with a little bit nice shape and also with the application which is holding this heater lines here. One goal was to keep those structural support here, which is a little bit difficult since you have not much space here, especially with the original placement of the ignition coils. So I made a little adapter here, a little adapter plate, so it pretty much moves the height on this end of this bar by its own width. So I would say maybe 25 millimeters. I don't have the exact measurement in mind now. And yes, with that solution you can keep the support. It's a 5 millimeter thick sheet metal plate, so it's much more stable than the original support here, so no disadvantage with the stability on this point. Another cool thing I think is that I flipped the throttle body by 180 degrees. This gives a little bit more space to the hood because the connection is a little bit eccentric. This was an idea brought to me by one of the 86 forum users who made the swap before me. So that's actually not really my idea. I just copied this on this point. And yes, so maybe here look at the bracket for the belt pulley. This bracket is also on design. It also includes a part of the AC line so that everything can be connected there. All adapters are in the kit, as I said. So one important thing is that this small part of the AC line is reused from the 86 line. I decided to do it because it just made sense, and anyway you need to crimp those hoses. There are many shops out there doing such things, shops that are dealing with agricultural machines or excavators and such things. They can do this for very little money, And yes, another nice detail, what was very important to me, was to keep this OEM latch support without any modification here. So as you may see here, it's a little bit dark, but I hope you can see it. There is still more than 1 centimeter of space, so you can also exchange the belt easily. You don't need to cut anything here to change anything. And also the rest of the positioning of the engine, it was important to me to avoid massive changes at the tunnel and so on. So only pretty much one bracket inside of the tunnel needs to be removed or hammered a little bit. Besides, of course, of the OEM transmission mount. So if you already are familiar with the swap on the 86, you may know that it's mandatory pretty much to remove this OEM transmission mount, because otherwise you have very little space for transmission for such a big engine, and that's really not possible. So this part needs to be removed, but besides that, only on the driver's side, pretty much down there, it's not possible to see this now, but there is a small support which holds pretty much the cover of the transmission. So it's this yes, sound or heat protective cover here. There is one position, this one here, which has a holder down there, and this one needs to be hammered back a little bit, maybe 15 millimeters, I think. Besides that, the only necessary thing is to adjust, I would say, the cutout for the shifter a little bit. There are maybe 10 millimeters. You have to increase the width of this cutout to match with the shifter. So the transmission used is T56 Magnum F. So I didn't use the XL version because the XL version would be a little bit too long for the position I have chosen. So I'm with the Magnum F, so it's a little bit shorter. I use stock GTO shifter. Of course, you can use any of the short shifters out there for the GTOs, for the F-body GTOs. This will fit also. And yes, so with the Magnum F, I think it's a pretty nice positioning of the engine. Very, very little modification of the chassis needed, as close to plug and play as possible. This was my goal, and also as close to OEM look as possible. So what I wanted to achieve is that somebody who is maybe not that familiar with cars and doesn't know what engine is usually sticking inside that car would see this and would say, okay, engine looks good, and that's it pretty much. So of course, with some changed colors of the covers and so on, you can make it look much more, let's say, fancy or individual or whatever. But I wanted to go down the road to let it look as OEM as possible. Yes, so as I said, part of the exhaust still missing. Anyway, let's take a look inside the car. I will also add a little clip where I start the engine. I will not do it now because, as I said, it's really very, very loud currently. I don't want to do this twice or 3 times a day. That's a little bit too much. Since I'm not a company, I have normal neighbors, and I don't want to overstress them. Okay, so as you see, it's looking pretty much as a bone stock GD86. Of course, I have another head unit. This is also own development. You can see some details in another video. Yes, I have a adapter for the stock shifter. So the upper part is from the stock 86 shifter, and underneath this you have the GTO shifter, also with a ceiling. so that you don't have an opening from under the car to the inside, so it's also sealed again as it is with the OEM shifter. I have used the CAN bus translator from AGT Engineering. This CAN bus translator is a really cool item. So with the OEM cluster, it was completely working, everything fine, not even one problem. OBD functionality is working, check engine lights are working, and so on. Everything is fine. You have ABS, the VSC or stability control is also still working with this unit. I didn't try out yet, but after what I have seen until now, I'm absolutely sure that this will also work. So the AGT Engineering CAN bus translator is pretty much also a plug-and-play unit. You have to do very little wiring stuff with that. It's very easy. You have to reroute, or that's at least what I have done. It's not totally necessary. You have to reroute the harness a little bit on side of the car, so that the main connector is not any longer pretty much in the middle up on the engine, but underneath the right headlight. And in this position also the stock engine harness of the LS3 is ending with the length you have on this harness from the engine in the OEM setup pretty much. I also changed a little bit the LS3 harness, but it's pretty much only shortening or prolonging some cables. That's everything I did, nothing more. And then the CAN bus translator comes with a pinout diagram you can use, and you just take the cables. The colors are described and so on. It's not a failure, of course, to have the wiring diagrams of the 86 and of the Camaro or whatever car you use for that engine as a spender. And yes, then you pretty much pin together the new main connector. So this connector also comes with the kit from Andrew, and so it's pretty complete. And yes, it's a plug-and-play solution, as far plug-and-play as you can have it for that type of swap. So yes, I'm pretty happy with everything until now. The car is moving, the drive shaft is installed, so the next steps are yes, finishing of this little cosmetic parts, but this is really a side task. Main task is now to finish also the exhaust. If you're interested, watch out. I come up with new videos of finishing of this build. And yes, once it is finished, of course, you will also see this car driving. Bye.